You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 294 of Meet the Farmers. I am your host, Ben Eagle. Now, the last time that I recorded with the couple who are on the show today, we were on location in the Cotswolds during a particularly good Meet the Farmers on Tour series. Note to self, I must do another one of those. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Alex and Emily Crawley on the show. Conservation graziers based in the Forest of Dean. And today we have another couple who started out with conservation grazing. James and Katie Allen are with me. James's journey into farming is an unconventional one. He grew up far from the countryside in southeast London. He studied civil engineering at the University of Nottingham, eventually becoming a specialist in oceanography. Katie, on the other hand, was running a small holding in Cornwall when the couple met. And they later settled in the Cotswolds, where James was living at the time, and together began building their conservation grazing business. Fast forward a few years, and they're now based on a 170-acre holding near Swindon. Their enterprise has recently taken an exciting leap forward as they've been awarded a £254,000 grant to build both a tannery and a classroom on the farm. Both of these are now up and running, and they're integrating them into their broader vision, which continues to revolve around native breed cattle and sheep grazing. James and Katie, it is great to have you back on the show. Welcome back to Meet the Farmers.
Hi.
Nice to see you again, Ben.
So, take us fully up to date, I suppose, because I think it was 2019. It might have been 2018. But I think it was 2019 that you were last on the show. Take us back to that point and what was going on for you then.
So that was, say, 5-6 years ago. We were conservation grazing, as you've mentioned, around the Cotswolds. We then moved to an estate and were grazing at an estate. And I think that's where we met you, actually, on the estate.
Yeah, it was.
So we were there for a few years. I think it was 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And then we grazed for the estate manager on the estate during the summer. In the winter, we went to a local farm just up the hill and did cover crop grazing, bale grazing on his arable fields. We then managed to find a farm not far from the house. So I think was it a 40-minute drive we were doing to Bruin Estate? Maybe 30 minutes, but it was a long trek.
No, it was a good 40, 45 minutes. And then over the winter, we were in a position where we were grazing the cows sort of half an hour from home, but in the opposite direction of where the Bruin Estate was. So when I was checking the livestock, it was half an hour to the cows. And then because it was a conservation site, it wasn't just jump out your car and check them. It was quite a big walk around to find them. And then it was back in the car and then 40 minutes across the Cotswolds, check the sheep who were always in different locations. And then it was back home. And it was quite hard.
Yeah, because we picked up winter grazing just by Cheltenham, on the hill at Cheltenham, and we were kind of using no fence collars and grazing there, but it's a hell of a hill, and so kind of managing up and down that, and then having to drive over somewhere else. We hung on to that winter grazing, and then moved kind of spring, summer, autumn grazing to just 10 minutes down the road, and we kind of just started kind of doing regenerative type grazing for that local farmer there. And at that point, we also converted to organic as well. So he was organic. So we then were able to go through the process to convert to organic.
I think one of the main things I remember at that time was, just the sheer number of miles that you were doing with, dare I say it, a baby at the time as well.
Yeah, a baby who's not number 5, not like baby that's number 1. So yeah, it was quite a lot to fit in around just doing the school run and clubs and stuff. So it is amazing to be able to have our own farm and be able to walk out the door and check the livestock.
Yeah, it's going to say
Jump on the
it
quad bike.
must be a great feeling. So bringing us to this point, give us an overview of the path that you've taken over the last few years to get to where you are now.
I mean, we've always talked about trying to have our own farm ever since we've got together. James was had pigs at the time, and I was at the small holding in Cornwall. And then we got into the conservation grazing, and you got cows, and I got more sheep, and but it's really hard not having your own land. There's no like a lot of diversification businesses for farms, particularly if you're farming in a small agroecological way. Diversification is really key to that farm revenue. And if you're just a grazier and you don't have barns and you don't have land you can invite people to, it's really difficult to do that diversification and to sort of like expand what you're doing. And I think we'd spent so long looking at all these beautiful estates and all these amazing farms and all these wonderful houses and all these great barns, and had all these ideas of things that we'd like to be able to do, and no way of doing it. And then I think when the opportunity came up to come to Great Cotmarsh Farm, I think we were just like, there was just so much that we wanted to do. So we've just gone,
It's been like 10 years of release of things that we've loved to have done.
Yeah.
We can now actually do.
Yeah, like water troughs, fencing, trees, hedges,
Dive bar, classroom.
Yeah, everything. It's just, and a home. We were renting.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. So actually now, one of the first things was just silly stuff like getting all the kids' bedrooms decorated. They'd had years of not being able to do that. So it was a massive change for us, but so amazing in so many different ways.
Yeah. Having sort of followed your journey as well, I'm honestly, I'm so chuffed that this has happened. But I mean, give us an overview of the farm itself. Tell us what it's like, what the land is like.
So we're at the bottom of the North Wessex Downs hills. So I think we've got 1 metre of our boundary actually is in the national landscape. At the far end, we're heavy clay, properly heavy clay. And they're pretty flat. There's a slight slope up to the other end. Farm's quite long and thin. So we're kind of 2 fields wide and 3 or 4 fields long as it goes up towards the hill. The guy before us had been here 45 years.
40 years they'd been here. Conventional dairy farm.
Yeah. And then he converted it to fattening stores.
What are the key changes that you've noticed? I know it hasn't been a long time, but bring us completely up to date.
We've definitely seen more species coming into other pastures that weren't there sort of like the first year or two that we were here. So I think there's definitely more diversity coming through the pasture with the way we do tall grass grazing. So one of the things that happened with the sheep the first couple of years we were here was they had calcium deficiency at lambing time. And I'd never had that in like 10 years of lambing. I'd never had a problem with calcium deficiency. And it was something over the last sort of the first 2 years that we were here, I had quite a few cases that I had to jump on and sort out. And looking into it, it's often where pastures have quite high levels of nitrogen in them, which obviously, because the sheep were used to grazing sort of like triple SIs, conservation grazing, very low input grassland, I think that was quite a shock to their system. Suddenly all this sort of lush grass that had been sort of fertilized with slurry and things like that over the time of the dairy farm being operational. And I haven't had any of it this year. And I don't know if that's because obviously, there's sort of been 2 or 3 years where we haven't put anything on. There's gradually beginning to get a bit more of a balance in the pasture, whether the livestock have adjusted to it as well a bit. But that was really interesting because that was a instant impact on the livestock from moving from these sort of traditional pastures to more improved grassland.
I want to talk about wool. And Katie, your knitwear collection in particular. To tell us a bit about this.
I can't remember at what point I was when we last spoke. Was I doing my MA?
I think you were. I
Yeah,
think
I
you
don't
were.
think I completed my MA. So I took a. Was it COVID? Was it during
No,
COVID?
it was before COVID. It was
Oh,
before
okay.
COVID. Yeah, I think
Um,
it was the summer. I think it was the summer before.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I was at a point where I'd done the first couple of modules of my MA, and then it was all on hold because we were moving house and having a baby, and there just wasn't room for it. And then when COVID hit, suddenly I wasn't like driving the kids around all the time, wasn't having to get up and do the school run. We were all sitting down to dinner. Life felt quite relaxed and laid back for us.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I really want to do more with my wool now. Want to relaunch. I want to relaunch my designs and sort of take the business to the next level. And I thought to myself, it's a shame I can't. That's like the final MA module. It's a shame I can't, do my MA. And then I was like, well, why can't I go back and finish my MA? It seems like a good opportunity. So I did. I managed to get back on the course and did the final module. But obviously, like 2 months after going back up on the course, all the restrictions were lifted. Life took off again. I was hurtling
Yeah.
around from ballet to hockey to tap, and yeah, it was crazy, but amazing, absolutely amazing for me. And I graduated, launched my collection, and it went on and it won awards, and it's been on the catwalk at London Fashion Week, and I've been stocked at Liberties in London.
Amazing.
Lots of stuff that on the face of it looks really cool and exciting. But I think fundamentally what it's done, and I think being here at the farm has really developed that further. It's my creative sort of output and expression of my work as a farmer, because it's so connected. The production of the fibre is so connected to how we manage the livestock on the land. And now as well, I'm growing dye plants to provide the colour. It's all very much rooted into the landscape here at the farm. And with the message that I'm trying to get across, it feels more like a sort of a piece of activism as well. It's my way too of saying these things are wrong and we need to look at how we can do it differently. And it's like a voice, I guess, as well. It's like a creative output and a voice of saying that this is what we're doing and this is how beautiful it can be and this is the difference it can make. And I think it ties in really well with the classroom and the education, and then James's new venture as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, which is a nice lead in. Thanks for that segue. Let's talk about those big developments first of all. The tannery and the classroom. What inspired these, and tell us how they came to fruition.
Uh, the tannery was a bizarre, really. It came about. I think we just bought the farm.
No, we had
hadn't
he
even
hadn't
got the
even
farm.
completed on the farm yet. I'd had an
Oh,
offer
really?
accepted and was going through the very stressful process of trying to, buy it. Which was
So we were kind of there, but and we had a night out in London, didn't we? Which was
James's
like,
birthday present.
yeah.
Was
So
tickets to Moulin Rouge.
yeah. So
Oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't a common occurrence for us to be out in London.
No, it was our annual trip
Yeah.
away.
oh, nice.
We were sat in a restaurant over a burger and a beer.
Solo burgers.
So yeah.
Oh,
And I just said to Kate, because we've been talking about what are we going to use the barn, because there's like dozens of barns here and we don't use barns. We've never had a barn in our life. We don't know what to do with it, but we still struggle really. Well, at the moment, we'll just say, well, we'll put something in that barn so it's got something in it.
for storing loads of things you don't need, James.
Yeah, well, we didn't, but that's the
But
interesting
we
thing.
didn't have loads of
We
stuff
didn't.
to store.
And that's what you said about what was it like buying the farm. The best way of explaining it would turned up and one of the water troughs was leaking. I didn't have any spare bits because we hadn't come from a farm, and I had to ring a friend, Andy Rumming, and I said, look, I need a adapter because it's spewing water everywhere. He said, pop round, went round, and he said, open the barn door, and said, there's one in there. And there were hundreds and thousands of little bits and adapters. We've had to buy every single one of those because we lived with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're struggling to fill the barns. I'm sure we'll get around to it. Anyway, so I just turned around to Katie. I said, I fancy setting up a tannery. And Katie, being Katie, just turned around and said, well, go on then.
Yeah.
Um,
Do it.
she's not very good at stopping me. So I just kind of started thinking about it, looking into it, doing a bit of research. I managed to get some funding from the Southwest Fibre Shed to actually do a kind of bit of a feasibility study, wasn't it? And I had a leather expert and sat here with a couple of people, and we talked for 2 days about how to make leather and whether it was viable. And so I just carried on going. And what probably made the biggest difference is I applied for a Churchill Fellowship travel scholarship. I thought, well,
Yeah. Can we just pause on that? Because lots of people will have heard of Nuffield's travel scholarships, but may not be aware of Churchill. And I think it's worth giving them a plug now.
yeah, so the Churchill Fellowship it's a trust that was set up after Churchill died. Um, there was obviously a national outpouring of grief, and people were donating money, and it was literally everybody in the country, pretty much, from my understanding, was giving whatever they could afford, from the poorest to the richest. And they built this fund up, and one of the things they do with it is they have this travel scholarship, kind of similar to Nuffield, but it's across a broad spectrum. And the concept in kind of it's not fun though. So the concept is, in my words, it's to go abroad, learn something for the good of this country, and bring it back. And the subjects they cover are, I mean, quite astounding. So everything from how to reduce suicide in teenagers to how to deal with bereavement on young children when they've lost their parents, to trying to deal with some of the big problems in the country, and the world for that matter. And there's some amazing people, and they give out about 100, scholarships every year. And they're on themes. So I think year I was there, a lot of it was around suicide prevention, and trying to deal with mental health issues in particular.
Okay.
There were people going to visit. So I bumped into someone at one of the events. She went to New York to talk to people there who managed all of the trauma for all of the children that lost parents through 9/11. So,
Wow.
of course, what you tend to forget is, obviously, thousands of people died, but they were all grown-ups. Most of them had families, so there were, at least that many, if not double, who also lost their parent of one form or another. And so they had a huge program in New York to actually how do they manage that trauma and that grief. And so the woman I spoke to went to see them and learned from them, and is bringing that back into this country. They did, and they haven't done it this year, but they did in the year I applied have a kind of countryside kind of theme. I applied, because throw enough darts at the dartboard, eventually you'll hit. And I got it through to second phase, and then I got an interview, and then they just said yes. And I can't. It was a bit weird because I didn't really believe it to start with. Because one of the questions they asked at the interview was, "Why do you want to make leather?" And I couldn't give them a very good answer.
Really?
It's the same. And I said this to them. I said, it's the same when someone asks me, "Why do you farm? Why do you want to farm?" Because it's a really hard life. Why do you want to do it? I just can't give you a good answer. There's something in me that I just want to. I don't know. I just can't tell you. And I just said that to them. And I thought, well, that was that. It's a nice experience. Trip out to London. Anyway, I got the scholarship. So I ended up, it took nearly 9 months to organise all the travel. I spent 3 weeks rather.
You say 3 months?
Yeah,
Lucky Katie.
Yeah, sure.
Farm to come back to.
Well, the farm would have been here because the rocks might have been changed. A 3 week visit to a micro tannery in Oregon. There's a guy there who started up through COVID, after COVID, doing online Zoom lessons for making leather. And you literally send you a kit, and you have 6 or 8 Zoom classes, and you come back with a proper piece of leather, sheep or goat or deer leather at the end of it. So I actually went to see him in his micro tannery, spent 3 weeks there, and then that was in the March. And then September, I went to a leather conference in Milan for a couple of days. you talk to a lot of the tanneries owners there to try and organise trips to go and see them. And then in November last year it must have been.
Yeah.
I went to Switzerland and Germany for a week, visiting a bunch of tanneries there, and then Italy for a week, visiting all the veg tanneries there. So I think I saw about a dozen tanneries over those 2 weeks.
It's about 6 weeks in total.
Yeah, 5-6 weeks in total. They don't have quite the same formal report that they do for Nuffield. People do formal reports, but you can get the information across through website, through PowerPoint, or through presentations, or through a report. And some people do reports. So yeah, so that was that, and that's how I kind of got to the point of actually knowing how to do it, knowing how to build a tannery, and then it was just a question of finding some money.
Yeah. So just pausing there again, what were your main learning points when it comes to leather from that trip?
It opened my eyes a lot to the range of materials that are leather. So leather is everything from chrome tanned leather, which is 90% of the leather that you and I know, through to veg tan, which is the traditional oak bark or bark based tanning material used to produce leather, which has the one that has that really kind of beautiful leather smell.
Yeah, of course.
And there's a huge range of different materials that are produced that are all classified as leather. But it was really how much intrinsic detail there is. It's not just a simple process. You don't go through 10 steps, because it's quite a process to get to leather from a hide. But it's not just a question of do A, B, C, D, E, F, and you're done. You can tweak and change things, and it's also almost an infinite variation you can do to produce a different material. And you can have a piece of leather, and I've got some samples kicking around, and this is one of the things that Matt did on the Zoom course, is you have two bits of skin which have come from the same animal. You put them through slightly different tanning process, and one is really soft, drapey clothing type leather, and the other one, it's not quite shoe thickness leather, but it's really quite thick and dense leather. And it came from the same animal. It just went through a slightly different process. So I think the key thing for me was learning that you can really tweak and change what you're producing, and you can do bespoke tanning in effect for different purposes.
Okay. So how did you go from that to having your own system on site? And take us through the grant application, and then I suppose this also leads on to the education side as well.
So you did a lot of the grant, but the North Wessex Down, we talked to them about doing a classroom or a tannery, and the program manager came. She was really enthusiastic.
She's amazing. We talked about it quite early on, and we had a meeting with her at the farm, and she was just like, she just loved it. She was really
huge amount of energy and drive.
Yeah, and she's amazing. Really, really passionate about supporting projects in the local area, and she really liked ours. I think she liked us. She trusted that we could deliver what we were saying we could deliver, and I think she knew how sort of unique it was, and the value that that both these two projects could add, both to the OAOMB for bringing people in and raising the profile, and also for the wider picture as well. So we were really lucky. It took a long time to get from a place where it was, we want to put our application in, to actually putting our application in. And it was, I think she came to see me at Groundswell. We were on the Pasture for Life stand, and we had some leather and wool, and we were just talking about everything that we were doing. And it was the first time we'd bought the wool and the leather together, actually, which was quite nice. And then she said to me, I'm running out of money. If you want to get this project in, it's like,
it's got it now.
It's now.
Wow. Did it now.
And so I was like, oh, okay, because I've got so much that I'm trying to balance and manage. I need a real deadline to actually pull some stuff off. There's some things I'll tick away at, but like some stuff I need to be up against the wall to actually pull it off, because I need the adrenaline to make it happen. And it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks of solid work writing, but obviously the content that was going in had been fermenting around in our brains for well,
Yeah.
years
Not in
really.
particular, yeah.
So it was and it was something that we were passionate about, and it was second nature about. So, and I think our application was quite in depth and detailed in that way. And we also, so James asked for letters of support, didn't we? There
Yeah.
are a few people that we asked for letters of support. James approached the leather industry. I approached sort of farming related contacts, Fibre Shed who'd already supported us and things like that. And we were overwhelmed by letters of support that we were able to submit with our application. Really very complimentary about us and the project and everything.
It was at that point where it was the last. So we didn't know. No one knew at that point that Fipple was going to come back, and it was literally the last one, last meeting, last pot of money. And we were told that she probably had 100, maybe 150,000. And we just went for it and put both in. And she's, with her support saying put both in. And
we weren't expecting to get the classroom,
no,
and we'd said to her, if you've got to prioritize, the tannery's got to come first.
Go for the tannery.
Yeah, because I felt it was really important. And we'd started doing some workshops at the garage, and I'd make it work somehow. It would be very different to what we're now doing with the education side of it, but we'd make that work. Whereas the tannery, this was like do or die. I knew how important this funding was. And then we got
yeah, we went in.
Yeah.
I was
flying back from Italy.
Yeah.
James was flying back from one of his tannery farmings in Italy. I was at home dealing with kids and stuff, and I got the phone call to say that we got it, all of it, and it was unanimous on the panel.
And the interesting thing was, so if it was over 250,000, it had to go to DEFRA to be approved and signed off and whatever. And she sent it to DEFRA and got a return email within 2 hours.
Yeah, within hours.
And she said, "I've never had an email back from them."
And is it from DEFRA? As we all know, that's fast.
Yeah.
And we think what it was. Do you remember when it all kicked off in the press about DEFRA not spending them, so the big underspend?
Oh, yes.
It was all around then. So we suspect there was some bloke just watching the emails. And if someone's saying, "We'd like to spend money," he was going, "Yes."
Just say yes.
So yeah, it came through and that was it. Although that was hard work, I mean, Katie, I don't have the stamina to stay up as late as Katie does. She was up till 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning for probably the last week, getting the bid in. But in some respects, that was the easy bit. Because it was the very last Fipple, we had till March to get it built.
So beginning of November, we got it built.
Wow.
Approved, wasn't it? Beginning of November or October? It might have been October, end of October, early November.
Christmas kicked in, so they didn't start building till the first week in January. So we had 3 months to get the classroom up and running and kitted out. Yeah, so the funding for the tannery is to completely build a new tannery. To get the rainwater harvesting in, to get 3-phase electricity into the building, and also to get a small reed bed system in for managing the waste. And that all had to be done within 3 months.
Wow. That is,
we had to get quotes as part of the process of the application. So we had people all lined up.
Yeah.
Who'd sort of, it was vaguely in their mind. And then as soon as November, it was right, that's it, we're off. The team that did the classroom particularly were amazing. It was all local electrician, local carpenter with his team of lads, and a local painter, and all.
They just wanted to get them. So I think you set up a WhatsApp group, so that all these local contractors were on the WhatsApp group messaging each other saying, "I'm coming in to do a bit of plumbing tomorrow."
Oh, that's great.
Finish the first fit or whatever it was. And so they made a real effort.
Because projects are normally a nightmare, and there have been bits that have been very stressful, but it was really, it's really good, and it's beautiful. It's really, really excited to have people in, and the tannery's amazing as well.
Oh, what a good news story! So, what's actually happening in the classroom? What are your plans?
I guess there's multiple streams to the classroom. The first thing is, so I've sort of devised this workshop called Fashion as a Force for Nature. and it's all about getting fashion students out on farm, so that they can sort of connect with the beginning of the fashion supply chain and sort
Love
of
that.
see how wool is actually grown, how leather, how cows are grazed in a healthy ecosystem, how we grow botanical dyes, and they can stand in the dye garden and literally see all these dye plants alive with bees and flies and things like that. And then you can talk about, how synthetic dyes, which are plastic, fossil fuel based, toxic, chemical horribleness causing pollution in our waterways. And then they're stood in a dye garden and it's just alive with life and colour. And it's just this amazing way to really engage these students. And as soon as they get off the coach, literally their feet hit the yard and they're already interested because they're on a farm, and you don't get to just go to a farm, and they're excited to see the livestock, and they're like, oh my gosh, sheep, and oh, look at the calves, and they love it. And yeah, no, we've got over 200 fashion students coming this year from local GCSE and A-level sort of age colleges. James managed to secure funding through the Leather Sellers for some education. So we've got universities coming with degree students, and it's amazing. It's, to me, that's what it's all about. That's how we're really going to make like proper grassroots change, is by getting people who are right at the beginning of their design journey to come and see and connect with nature, with a healthy ecosystem, with the role of grazing ruminants in grasslands, and just to see it for themselves and feel it, and be passionate about it. So that's really exciting. And then we're also working with the Sustainable Food Trust. We're now one of their beacon farms, and
Fantastic.
we've got sort of curriculum linked program to deliver with primary schools, again, to get them out on farm. And it's all about healthy food, healthy soil, healthy nature is sort of like the theme of it. And there's resources for teachers, resources for the kids. And we've got our local primary school coming, and I'm in touch with other primary schools as well. So hopefully we'll have more of those coming out.
We're also looking to do a couple of community events potentially.
Yes, we talked about like this because we've got a decent projector in there. Thought about doing like screenings of like relevant films that we can bring the local community in. We're putting an orchard in as well, and I want it to be like a community orchard, so people can effectively sponsor a tree, and then they can come harvest their tree and help maintain it, and have that sort of connection to the farm and what we're doing here. So
yeah, and we'll use, the classroom will be used for all sorts of things. So for people wanting to run kind of farming type courses, be they kind of, holistic planned grazing courses or anything related to that, it'll be available for that. For the local farm cluster as well. So they'll be, we'll have the next FIPL board meeting is going to be in the classroom.
Oh, I like that. That's very, very full circle.
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
And
and that's kind of why they're
what they've
coming.
done.
Yeah.
So I think the local farm cluster are coming here in September, and we'll do lots of things like that. And also as part of what we're doing for the tannery, so we're not only producing leather, we're not only part of this education, fashion as a force for nature, we're also trying to support other micro tanneries being set up, because it is wickedly expensive to get the big machinery needed for some of these tanneries. So we're looking to get funding to get that, and then allow that resource to be used by other people who want to come here, or other people that want to use that machine, so they can then go back to wherever, to their own farm, to actually tan their own leather. But we'll also do education around that as well, so they'll come and see how to set a tannery up, and learn. And we are just about to announce that we are doing a first kind of UK micro tanners conference on the farm next June. So
Wow.
I think 17th of June. The day before, we'll be doing tannery and farm tours, organising the local microbrewery is going to do some of food and beer on that. So we're going to have 2 days for people interested in tanning to come and learn from experts that are coming, hopefully from around the world, to actually present at that conference.
Wow. Well, what a good news story. I'm hoping this is going to inspire lots of listeners out there. This is absolutely brilliant. And I found your last episode. It was episode 51. back in the summer of 2019, and it's just amazing, this whole story. If we think back to us standing in the rain back then, to where you are now. Yeah, all that's just say really is just say thank you for coming on. I am going to ask you the last two questions. And there is again, there's heaps more which we could have talked about. You'll have to come on in another 5 years. But I'll ask you the last two questions. The first is a message for the public, and the second is a message for farmers. Do you want to do one each?
The message for the public will be think about what you're buying before you click on that button and say, I'll have one of those tomorrow, please, for this Saturday.
Yes, a message for farmers, I guess. If you're like thinking about diversifying, I would say make sure you do and choose something that you love and that you're passionate about. Don't just pick a diversification because it seems like a sensible thing to do. Obviously, it needs to be sensible, but if you're really passionate about something, make that your diversification, because I think that farming's hard enough and hours are long, and it can sometimes feel pretty unforgiving, I guess. And if you're going to add a whole layer of additional work and complexity into that, I think it really helps if it's something that you feel passionate about and strong about.
I think that's a really, really good point made. And again, you are a case in point of having brought that to fruition, brought it to life. And yeah, just want to thank you so much for coming on the show to tell us about it, give us your update, and wish you the absolute best of luck with it. Really looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
No, fantastic, Ben, and congratulations, by the way, and good luck with the wedding, which would have happened by now, presumably.
Thank you. It will have done. It will have done. Yeah, this episode is coming out on the 26th of May. So yeah, by the time it comes out, yeah, I will be married, which is quite mad, really. That is it for today. We'll leave it there. A huge thanks to my guests, James and Katie, for coming on the show. Thank you also for listening. Next time, we'll be talking farm fitness and Britain's Fittest Farmer competition with Will Arden, who is in Lincolnshire. But for now, I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers, and thank you very much for listening.